Hello and welcome to Company Culture with Yvette C Owens, where we explore the behaviors that impact organizations. Yes, there are behaviors that impact organizations. I'm your host, Yvette C Owens. Cultures are made up of people, process, technology, and the physical space. And people being our most important resource in our culture, it is warranted and it merits us to spend some time to talk about the people that make up the culture, not just the leadership. It's also how those individual contributors and other leaders respond to what the visionary has put together. So again, I welcome you to Company Culture with Yvette C. Owens. I am your host. I'm also the author of Conquering Corporate Enemies, Mind, Personalities, and Situations, where I reflect on and share my experiences of 40 some years in the workplace and those of my clients, what we've come up against, how we've overcome, um, how we've even had to deal with our own mindset, because sometimes it's not always everybody else, sometimes it's us, and um, how we're responding and showing up in the workplace. And so that's what we're really going to talk about today. And when we talk about culture and company culture, it's not just about the um, a company or a corporation as we know as a Fortune 500, but it also includes churches, it includes schools, it includes community organizations and movements. So stay tuned, and you're going to benefit and you're going to love. And this conversation is going to be phenomenal. So I ask you to stay there, stay tuned. My book also has a companion workbook that is great for students, leaders in organizations, individual contributors, those who are wanting to advance in their careers, and it is available on Amazon.com. I am known and referred to as the business ambassador. I'm known and referred to as a business ambassador, where I help people who are not satisfied with where they are and want clear, actionable plans on where they want to go, personally or in their business, whether it's for their career, how they want to get there. I am here to help them move beyond and have actionable plans, things that will help them build momentum. So if you are in that space that you would like to have some help in putting together an actionable plan on how you want to move forward and how you know it's time for you to show up as confident winner in the space, it's time for you to win in the spaces that you've been in, connect with me and we can have a power conversation about that. I invite you also to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Hit that like and share and subscribe. Also on Facebook at Company Culture with Yvette C. Owens, where I produce my weekly podcast, as well as the Diplomat Chronicles. Again, as I said, culture is created by people, the process, the technology, and the physical space. Our topic tonight is My Past Followed Me to Work. Both leaders, staff, and teams, employees have life experiences that follow them into the organizations where they're expected to perform. And we're going to talk about what that looks like, what we're to do about it, and why. Why? Because we want to show up with the confidence that we have in knowing our value and our worth, and successful people know what makes them unique and they continue to refine their niche. And so we are here to encourage you to understand what you're coming into the organizations that you are a part of with, how to make sure you're showing up as a winner, and then how do you continue to refine that. So I want to welcome my guest. And my guest tonight is a young lady. Hey,
Hello, how are you?
Aisha Young. She is the founder and executive director of the Conqueror's Journey. So mine with the conquering corporate enemies, and she's with the conqueror's journey. We here to conquer tonight. Okay. She is a creator
Wow.
of the conqueror's journey, which is a cycle breaking movement. She serves as an accountability and inspiring awareness, ownership, mentorship, and successful application, resulting in freedom from recycled dysfunction at the family level. And we're going to hear more about that tonight. She is also known as a generational ambassador and cycle breaker. So we have two ambassadors here to help you move beyond where you are. She is the author of Imagine Me, Conquering Fear, Stigmas, and Regrets, certified life coach, and generational trauma healing facilitator. Good evening, Aisha, and welcome again to Company Culture with Yvette C Owens.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Yvette. Yes, happy
Awesome.
to be here.
Awesome. It's so great to have you here. And before we
Thank
get
you.
to the topic tonight of, my past followed me into the workplace, share more
Mhm,
about tell us more about your role as a generational ambassador,
mhm.
breaker.
Yes. And so it is because I allowed my past to follow me to work. I allowed the dysfunctions that were very evident in my bloodline to show up to different workplaces, my relationships at large. And so one day, I was just in a dark place, and I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I know that's a cliche, but I really had come to a dark point in my life where I was just like, this is crazy. I contemplated suicide, and so it's all
Mm,
types of things. You name it, I've journeyed through it. And so in my final moment, my final dark moment of just being sick and tired of being sick and tired, I made a decision, which is very important. I made a decision, and that was one of the choices that God gave me. One of the choices He gave me was you can just stay bitter, stay resentful in regards to the discovery of the cycles of dysfunction that you're connected to. You can stay bitter about why I brought you into this family bloodline with all the murky, things that are going on, or you can join forces with me, and I can
mhm,
use you to my glory to
mhm.
be the cycle breaker in your family, and join the force of cycle breakers and generational ambassadors across the globe. So I made that decision. Yeah.
Decision. I mean, that's critical. We gotta
It's
decide.
wonderful.
You have to
Yeah.
decide enough is enough.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
I posted today, if you don't like what you see, change how you're thinking and what you're saying and what you're doing. But again,
Yeah.
that's it happens at a decision point, right?
Decision point.
You
Be the
can't
change
just
you want to see.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so and nobody's going to do it for us, right? It has to be
Absolutely not.
because
Yes.
you were in that
Absolutely
place
not.
and you were doing what you were doing, feeling miserable
Hmm.
to the point,
Yeah.
like you said, of suicide, and
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
probably
Many
patting
people
you
don't
on the
know that. Yeah.
right. People
Yeah.
probably
Yeah.
patting you on the shoulder saying, "Oh, you can make it, girl. Don't give up."
Hmm.
You don't know what's going
Hmm.
on inside of
Having, yeah, the torment was great. It
you.
was so great. It was so overwhelming. And I was so bitter, not briefly so, but very bitter and resentful at God when I
Hmm.
finally discovered, oh, this is what's going on with me. This is why I keep sabotaging relationships. This is why I keep showing up to my workplaces. And, I wasn't the violent type, right? I'm not trying to put that out there. I wasn't the
Right.
violent type. I wasn't necessarily disrespectful or would cuss you out, but I was still show up in my insecurities. I would show up to work in my insecurities. I would show up to church in my low self-esteem. I would show up in my relationships, my friendships, and my relationships even before I got married. Any type of work relationship, church relationship, I would show up in all of my relationships just sabotaging because of the cycles of dysfunctions that I had been reproducing,
Hmm.
from my bloodline. And so I had to make that decision to join forces with God or continue to sink, continue to sink
Hmm.
and become a product of the bloodline versus a Victorian, if I can say it that way, a victor.
Right.
you know, so,
Right. And I've noticed that
Yeah.
how it showed up for me was you become very suspicious of
Mhm.
everybody and everything around you. So when you're in that workplace, right, and you have leaders
Mhm.
who, they might just be doing the best that they can because you want to
Mhm.
positive intent on everyone, right? They're
Yeah, yeah.
can, but because you're so self-esteem is so low, uh,
Mm.
you're dealing with so many things inside, uh,
Mhm.
trying to hold it all together but falling apart at the same time. Then you're
Yes.
suspicious of the littlest things and
Mhm.
aren't able to position yourself for growth because you don't even know how to maintain and build a really good relationship with leadership,
Yes.
those around you, so they do give you those opportunities because you're always
Mhm.
backing off and you're always
Mhm.
oh, this is all they want after me, or this is only what
Right.
I care about. And it's like, no. And oh, by the way, we are there to perform, we are there to do work. uh,
Yes.
are leaders
Yes.
that do really care about you, and they're
Mhm.
there to be your psychologist or sociologist,
Mhm.
whatever, but
Exactly.
they
Right.
are there to care enough so that you can produce,
Exactly,
right?
exactly. That's what I found out. I found out that not only was I showing up with my dysfunctions, sabotaging relationships at all levels, God, really revealed to me, hey, listen, you got to take ownership of your stuff, right? And you got to do the work that it takes for you to be a cycle breaker. But at the same time, don't beat yourself up too much because it's not biblical, right? But it really does take two to tango.
Right,
Meaning, to the
right,
same degree that you showed up in a certain way that you should not have, and you should have known better to show up better and differently. Your leadership still has a responsibility on how to respond to your
right,
dysfunction, how to
right,
respond to your insecurities. Again, as you just stated, my leadership is not my therapist or my psychologist, on any level of leadership or in organizations. But at the same time, with you being a leader, you have to be equipped to deal with those who don't show up as the best version of themselves God intended. How do
right,
you do that when you, as a leader, come down to the very level of those who you're leading, who are following you? You're coming down, you're meeting them at the same ratchetness or the same nasty responses or those same levels. That's not getting anyone anywhere. So as a leader, you're supposed to be an example.
exactly.
You're not my therapist, but you're my example. I've actually had that. I've had one leader. I've had one leader, I want to say, in my life, honestly, sad to say that it was only one that I can remember, that when I showed up to the workplace in particular, and this wasn't even church. You would think this in church, that's where it really is supposed to happen. But
Hmm.
at work is where I don't even believe that she is a Christian.
Hmm.
I believe she believes in God, but I don't believe, to my knowledge, that she's Christian. But she took the time to take me to the side, one-on-one sidebar, and
Hmm.
gave me the "you are better than that"
Hmm.
conversation. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? You are better than what you're showing up. This organization can do so much more with you, but you're showing up like this and you're showing up like that, and you're sabotaging relationships, and people don't want to use you, and this is not who you are. I need you to show up better. That the fact that she took that type of time,
Yes. Yeah.
oh, sidebar, versus coming back at me the way I came at her,
Right.
rendering the same energy, trying to get back at me, trying to make me lose my job. I've been through all those things. I've been through
Yeah.
leadership who, I don't want to deal with you. I don't want to deal with your dysfunctions. I don't want to deal with your issues. And so I'd rather have you out of here. Literally, I'd rather have you out of the church.
Hmm.
I'd rather have you out of this organization where you're working for us. I want you
Wow.
gone, versus them being equipped that this is an uncomfortable moment for me. This is inconvenient. This is uncomfortable. But let me take Miss Aisha, a young
Yeah.
lady, to the side and help her understand that she's much better than what she's producing, so much better than how she's showing up and what we expect of her, and encourage her. So, leadership has a responsibility also. They really do.
Absolutely. And I not too long ago did a podcast on those uncomfortable conversations
Hmm.
and how to handle those because we all have to have them, right? And
Yeah.
that was a powerful one-on-one. And we all
Mhm.
have one conversations with our leaders. Some of them have
Yes.
weekly or whatever. That's
Yes.
what a one-on-one conversation should be like.
Mhm.
Here's what
Mhm.
I not just here's what I need you to do, but how's it, and not just how's it going for you and you just tell them how's it going, but here's what I
Mhm.
see in you. Here's what I whether it's good or bad, right? But
Mhm.
always lead, they say do that sandwich, right? It's like to every negative thing share at least two good things, right?
There you go. Yes.
So it's like,
Yes.
what are you seeing in Aisha? What are you seeing in Jeff? What are you seeing
Mhm.
in Bob that it might not be showing up, but you know it's there. You have an
Yes.
intuition that it's there and it's some good stuff that's there if he would just let it come through. And
Yes.
you as a leader position them in a place that it can come forth. Because we can
Yes.
see certain things in people, but if we don't give them the opportunity to shine and show those things,
Absolutely.
we keep them doing the same thing, but maybe the same thing is not going to uh, be able to give them an opportunity to really display that, and not
Mhm.
for the organization, but so they can see it. And that somehow
Yes.
they walk away from an assignment and say, "Wow, I did that." I
Absolutely.
and even if they need coaching along the way, they still come away saying, "I did that," and
Yeah.
that gives a whole new fire behind somebody
Absolutely.
who's working and doing and trying right,
Right.
overcome
Right.
the stuff in
Yes.
our life, because we all
Right.
have stuff. So let's clear the air
Yes.
that
Yes.
dysfunction is not just a part of some, it's a part
Mhm.
of all.
Mm.
Now,
All of
some of
us.
us have more degrees of dysfunction than others,
Absolutely. Yes.
granted, but
Yes.
everybody has a degree
Everybody.
of
Yes.
dysfunction, right?
Yes, and it's because of Psalms 51 that explains to us that in our mother's womb we were conceived in sin and iniquity. So, what is
Right.
sin and iniquity? Dysfunction.
Exactly. Exactly.
It is dysfunction. Period.
Exactly.
And so,
And
your dysfunction may not be my dysfunction, but we
right.
but we have one.
Right.
We have one. No matter how polished we are, we
That's
have
right.
one.
And
Yeah.
you talk about in how people wear a mask and how you know
Hmm.
we have dysfunction, but we learn how to operate in our dysfunction, right?
Yes.
So you can have
Absolutely.
a high performer showing up at work, or showing a senior leader showing up at church,
Yeah.
or a senior leader showing up in a movement, a community
Yeah.
organization, and
Yeah.
they are clearly dysfunction, but they know how to wear the mask. So
Yes.
how do
Absolutely.
they even identify that they have a mask on?
Well,
Especially
you
if that
know,
mask is serving them well.
exactly, exactly. Because I was just getting ready to say, well, sometimes we can serve very well, we can lead very well, but see, it doesn't, in my opinion, it doesn't last for long. If you're going to be tested, and there's going to be someone that's going to uncover that mask for you,
Hmm.
um, in the way of situations and just matters that arise itself. You're going That mask that you're wearing is going to be tested. Well, is this
Hmm.
really you?
Hmm.
Or because that mask is going to be tested. What you're really dealing with on the inside and the core of you that people don't know anything about is going to be tested, because I believe that is just how our God is. Our God doesn't want us to continue as we are, continue in talent and being gifted and being anointed, and
Right.
yet you have some things going on the inside that you don't want to uncover. You just want to sit on it. So what do I
Right.
have to do with God? I have to create a situation. I
Hmm.
have to create an opportunity
Right.
for this thing that you're wrestling with inside, that you're hiding behind this mask, to manifest and come forth.
Right.
So he knows how to create the situation, and you walk right into it, and as polished as you are, as calculated as you are, right, with that
Right.
mask. That's the
Right.
whole point of the mask. It's about being calculated, so people don't hold on. I don't want nobody to see that. Wait.
Right.
But
Right.
at some point, it's going to go like that, and you ain't even know. And that's
Right.
God. I am trying to get to that thing that,
Right.
we got to get it resolved. We got to get it out of you. You got to surrender it. And so I do believe that is one way that God will,
Right.
do that with us. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think what you're hitting on are those triggers, right? And
Yes.
those triggers
Yes.
will test our character, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
Our
I think I've
character.
been I'm sorry. I think I've been the test for a lot of leadership, to be honest with you. I said that to my husband and some of my friends, like, some people will, I've seen them show up in response to me not even trying to sound like have a pity party or sound like the victim, but in just looking back at how some of my leadership from church to work and even friends, even how some people have responded to me, it just seems like, well, I've been the trigger. You know what I mean? My dysfunctions and my issues have been the trigger because they've not necessarily dealt with somebody like me across the
Right.
board. And
Right.
so here I come along, and they have this response towards me. Not always disrespect, but just it's been different scenarios. But the case in point is, it's so interesting how I've heard about these leaders that I've come in contact with, and they are celebrated everywhere. They're celebrated in their congregations. They're celebrated at work as leadership, and people have great things to say about them. Great relationships. You could tell based on how people talk, and Facebook is showing things and all this. But these people, the majority, the overall public would never know my experience with them
Mm.
when Aisha's dysfunction showed up on the scene. The ugly in them
Right.
appeared. And you
Yeah.
would never know that because your experience and your experience and your experience and your experience has been nothing but roses with them.
Mm-hmm.
But when I encountered them
Right.
behind closed doors, sometimes in public, but mostly behind closed doors or with just one witness or so, woo, it was something completely different. And then to even, not even on a gossip point, but to even be able to share that with somebody like, this is what I really experienced with them when this happened, and I did this and I did that, and they really came at me like this. It's almost like people wouldn't even believe what I would have to tell them about that person because
Right.
again, your experience is something
Was very
completely
different. Yeah.
from that person. when
Exactly.
I show up my, as the devil would try to make me think, unique
Yeah.
dysfunction,
Yeah.
unique issue,
Yeah.
so out of the box. Aisha, we've never dealt with anybody like you. Woo!
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
so it's like, okay, so when I show up, wow, I'm like your trigger. The
Mm-hmm.
things I'm dealing with, it's challenging you to, okay, well now I have never come across this before. I've never come across Aisha and
Mm-hmm.
all of this she got going on. And so, are we asking the Holy Spirit, or are we going to the side and trying to brainstorm or ask the Holy Spirit, well, how do I deal with her? How do
Right.
I deal with her the best way I can without damaging her? Because I see that she is damaged, how she is showing up and how she is reproducing certain things for her bloodline. Wow, this is not even, who she really is, I'm sure. So what do I do? What can I do in this moment to make her understand? What can
Right.
I do? I'm not able to change her in this moment, but what can I contribute? What seed can I sow? Even though I'm frustrated and I'm human
Right.
and I'm in
Right.
advance right now, what is my role in this
Right.
moment?
Right.
Although this chick just offended me.
Right.
What God, what am I supposed to do with this? Do I just not use her at all in ministry, and she can just
Right.
stick over here and stay out of the way so you don't ruin nobody's your trouble? Do
Right.
I just try to fire her from the job because I'd rather not deal with her? Like how do we do that? And so, that's one of the things that God helped me not beat up myself so much about. It really
Mm-hmm.
takes two to tango. It really is a matter of a responsibility of how I show up or how we show up, and then how leader responds to us as well. So,
Right. And I think the key is um, not only to ask yourself if you're a leader and you have someone that's challenging you know,
hmm
how you perform or your organization or your leadership or not,
hmm
but they're showing up hurt and therefore you have to figure out how to respond. But uh,
hmm
first ask our we as leaders we have to ask ourselves, why is this triggering this in me? Why am I afraid?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because if there could be
Yes.
some, and to your point,
Yes.
we come across different people to take us to different dimensions and levels, and so it can,
Mhm.
as you said earlier, make us bitter and angry or resentful, or we could say,
Mhm.
hey, this is an opportunity to step up my game
Yes.
and to really learn how to lead people who might be
Yes.
hurting, lead people who are coming to the workplace with stuff that I thought
Mhm.
was over,
Wow.
stuff that I thought I was
You
over,
fucked up.
but now
Right.
it's triggering something in me, and it's like, hold up, we're not supposed to be doing that here, because now my mask
Yes.
is cracking. Now my mask is cracking. Right? It's exactly because
Yes.
now this behavior is now I'm going back to my old ways
Yes.
and
Or
dealing with
discovering
this
something
person.
that I didn't even know was there.
That's right. Or I thought I was over, right? And
Yeah.
realizing that I'm not as healthy as I thought I was.
Exactly. That's exactly
And
where I was
so,
getting ready to go. I was getting ready to go to that point of sometimes we feel that because somebody's in leadership, whether it's church or work or what have you, they have this position, this title. We automatically think that they just, I don't know if it's subconscious or what, but sometimes, if we're not really thinking and mindful, we automatically think that they're perfect. We put them in this, and we do put them in this should know better category. And
right,
they should know better as our leaders, because as I said earlier, there are examples. But a lot of times, what God revealed to me is that a lot of our leadership is just as dysfunctional as those
right,
that are leading. They
right,
so
right,
just because you got into the position of leadership, or it was rendered to you, or you were favored, or what have you, it doesn't really mean that you are equipped on all sides. Maybe the
right,
task itself,
right,
you're able, but when it comes down to the interpersonal and dealing with the people, that takes equipping and skill also, not just the job itself that you're leading the people to do, but just dealing with the people itself. So a lot of leaders have dysfunctions within themselves, and it takes a very mature, humble leader to be able to look at themselves and just say, I know I'm leading these people and they're looking up to me or whatever, but I need to lay my pride down and go through some evaluations of my own, put
mhm,
myself on the
right,
table, if you will. You know what I mean? Put
right,
myself in the evaluation booth and say, well, how am I doing? How am I showing up?
right,
Am I doing my best with the people that are following me, with the people that I'm leading?
right,
What does that look like? So
right.
that's
And we
something
want
we
to
need to
welcome everyone who's watching. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm here,
mhm.
yes, a young lady, I'll get it right, of conquering a conqueror's journey, and we're
Mhm.
about my past following me into my workplace or the organization where I am, and how that shows what it looks like. And we've been sharing about how do even leadership respond, because we're all growing. We all have dysfunction, some levels, some greater, much greater, and some not. Some of us have overcome dysfunction, and then there are situations or personal people who show up in our lives who might trigger what we thought we were really over. That's what we've been talking about tonight. And so, how
Yeah.
do we make sure? And the bottom line, the reason why we're talking about this tonight is because it's time that we show up in our organizations, whether it's corporate, whether it's churches, whether it's colleges, whether it's community organizations. It's time that we show up knowing who we are, with the confidence and knowing our self worth, so that we can prosper and the organizations that we're a part of can really grow. And that doesn't
Yeah.
mean we show up, and I think that's what our first part of our conversation has been about. It doesn't mean that we're perfect people showing up, but we're people who are recognizing that we're there to help each other complete and finish the vision. Because you
Yes.
join an organization and a culture because you believe in the vision and the mission of
Yes.
the organization. So if that's the sole purpose and that's the focus, then we have to show up as our best selves. Our best selves are not perfect people, again, but it's people who know that we can work together and we can help each other grow and help each
Mhm.
other be the better that we can be. Um, and so
Absolutely.
yeah, so we talk about how we overcome and not work in anger and bitterness and resentment. We've talked about the masks that people wear. How do we take those
Mhm.
masks off? Because I think after we've gone through what we've gone through in 2020,
Yeah.
people are showing up and like, you know what? I can't play with life now. I am not. Look, life
Yeah.
is too short and too fragile to be playing
Yeah.
games. So I need to
Hmm.
be my real self and find a place where I can do that
Yes.
and be my best self. So
Yes.
share some thoughts around, how do people, the fact that people are, how do I show up and just be me and
Mhm.
and be real, but at
Mhm.
the same time we have to balance professionalism, right? And we have to
Yes.
balance the fact of why we're there. And I just
Mhm.
raw me, but I can be me that will help advance that organization.
Yes. I believe that we have to find and we have to discover who we are.
Mm,
How about that? If you don't know who you are, then obviously you're showing up not the best version of yourself,
right.
you know? And so, one of my mantras is that our generational bloodline was only our transportation to temporary planet Earth, but it's not who we are.
Right.
What you've been born into is not who you are. So, we have to get to a point where we understand that, we have to stop making excuses about what we're surrounded by in our families, because that's where the dysfunction starts. They start at the bloodline, right?
Hmm.
They start from what we have been exposed to from mom and dad, grandparents, aunts, uncles, the whole bloodline, the whole
Right.
family tree. And so what we've been, raised in, is learned behavior. But, you know, it becomes our responsibility as we get older to the age of accountability, where we decide, right and wrong. Right and wrong is not just, well, I'm, stealing versus paying for it. You know what I'm saying? It's
Right.
also about, well, let me evaluate, what's happening in my bloodline and why, I may be showing up a certain way, whatever that way is, whatever that dysfunction is. And so we definitely have a responsibility to be, and we have to be accountable to how we show up. We have to be. I'm going to be discussing in my future book about the bloodline assessments. I'm giving y'all a little bit of a tidbit of the
So
new
before
book.
you go there, let's talk about what blood when we mean bloodline. Not
Yeah,
everybody understand what bloodline
you're
is.
right. You're
About
right.
it.
So when I mention different keywords like bloodline or generational cycle dysfunction, bloodline is basically your family tree. Your those who are in the line of those you are blood connected to, right? So I use bloodline because I'm referring to everyone. I'm referring to your parents, your grandparents, as far back as we could say Adam and Eve, right? But as far back
Right.
as your ancestors in your bloodline. And this is where cycles of dysfunction, people like to call it generational curses. I disagree with that because the book of Ezekiel helps us understand that it's no longer a generational curse,
Right.
right? God, Jesus was made the curse for us on the tree, and so therefore it's no longer a generational curse, but the habits are still traveling in your bloodline. You still
Right.
pick up behavior and choices and how
Right.
you talk and all those things from mommy and daddy, grandma, ancestors, right?
Right.
So I refer to those as generational cycles of
Right.
dysfunction. We are reproducing that which is sinful, reproducing that which is not healthy, right, from your bloodline.
Right.
And so, yeah.
And it's usually the things that we don't like. So we say, I can't
Mhm.
stand when my mama or my daddy act like this way. And then next thing we know, we show up and we look in the mirror and we're like,
Yeah,
sound just like them.
yeah.
just like them, and it's like, until you make a decision, it stops here. I am
Until,
not going
yes,
that way. I'm
yes,
not going to do that because
yes,
it's getting in my way. One, it's not probably the right thing to do, but two, it's
yes,
getting in my way from reaching where I know I need to reach, right? And
yes,
so it's
exactly.
those kind of things that we're talking about that end up following us into organizations that
Yes,
relationships, that
yes,
impact our growth in that organization.
everywhere.
We go,
Mm-hmm.
it just
Mm-hmm.
impacts everything. How we talk
Yes,
to people, how we,
yeah,
how we receive how other people talk to us, um, how, it just impacts it all. And we have to get to a healthy place where
a
we
healthy.
are confident and can continue to be healed and continue to grow and overcome this, because you
Mhm.
just don't wake up and say, I'm stopping this. And it's
Listen, that is one of my favorite points. I always say to people, it does not evaporate into the sky. You
it
will not
doesn't.
wake up one day and all of these things are going to be gone. There is a work involved, and your
Exactly.
participation is required in
Right.
the work that's involved in breaking these things off in your life. And my one of the things I try to encourage people when I'm in a conversation like this is that you have to be aware. Awareness is key.
Yes.
That is why we keep recycling dysfunctions, because we don't have awareness. We're not even aware that cycles of dysfunctions is a thing that
Right.
is real. That it really is a thing that you can begin to act out negatively. I'm not talking about the
Hmm.
positive things, but negatively act out those things about your mom, your dad,
Hmm.
your
Hmm.
grandparents. It's
Right.
a thing.
Right.
You have to be aware of it and take time to invest in, I want to say, I want to say the investigation of it. If you
Hmm.
care enough about yourself, if you care enough about your purpose and your calling and how you're showing up, then you have to care enough to invest the time. So I always tell people it's not necessarily about going on ancestry.com and
Right.
let me find all my family members and figure out, because that's not necessarily going to even tell you the dysfunctions that's
Right.
in your bloodline, not necessarily.
Right.
But you do. There is a work involved, and sometimes,
Right.
and for me, I was a preteen when I started asking questions. There were some things going on around me as the youngest, as the baby in my family, that I am sure they were just like, she don't know what's happening. There was sexual
Mm.
abuse happening in my family, and people having to come out of my household that I grew up and all that stuff. And it was just so many things happening around me, and I started to ask the hard questions.
Yeah.
I unfortunately made my mom very uncomfortable, but I asked the hard questions
Right.
to get some clarity on what is happening around me. And it's so interesting because that was all God, because you figure when you grow up in dysfunction, well, that's all you know. But there
Right.
was the wisdom of God was on me early in
Hmm.
regards to something is not right. This is
Hmm.
all I know around me, but something about this doesn't sit with me right. And so, what's going on? you
Right.
know, I gotta ask these questions. And so I asked
Right.
some hard questions and I got some answers. And with those answers, God started to reveal more and download more about how I was showing up. And this is how, if you're disappointed in your father, well, this is what you've been recycling also. It's just those moments that God would catch me and say, hey, check this out. Look at that, pay attention, open the eye, And from all of that, it all built up to the light bulb went off. And it was just
Right.
like, wow, okay. I am showing up like these people around me, and they're great, wonderful people, but they haven't addressed their stuff, and I'm reproducing. I'm
Right.
reproducing. And
Right.
so, what am I going to do about this? Well, I made a choice. Like I said earlier, I made a choice um, to partner with God and be that cycle breaker and be that. And it's an uncomfortable price. It's an uncomfortable price, but it's worth it
Right. Right.
and it's
Right.
necessary.
Yeah, because awareness is a big part of the work, but with
Yes,
awareness, then you have to go about fixing it, right? Um,
absolutely.
and that's even greater work. But it's
Yeah,
work. It's so
Well,
worth it too.
it's
And you it's almost like it's not negotiable. It's non-negotiable to one become aware and then two to fix it. It's
yes,
negotiable. If
absolutely.
you really want to go as far as you were born to go, and
Mhm,
I want to
mhm.
say that here because some people think, well, this is what I was born into, this is all I'm going to ever have. And that's not true. Just because
Yeah.
everybody else in your family chose to stay in the low bar, to stay in the valley, to
Yes,
stay
ma'am.
at the minimum, uh,
Yes, ma'am.
does not mean that that's the fate of all of you. So,
Exactly.
and that was planned for all of you because
Mhm.
a good plan for all of us.
Absolutely.
Up to us to step into that and do the work.
Exactly.
Some of us have some, again, the awareness, and then how do I fix it? And some of it,
Mhm,
to your point, let's just give some examples, right? Like if you
mhm,
went off on somebody
mhm,
and it was no reason for you to go off, or it seemed like there was a reason for you to go off and you were in full right to go
mhm.
somebody, but you get that oomph in you that says you need to apologize. You have to woman up, man up, and go apologize. Not explain your behavior, not justify your hate behavior, but simply apologize.
Yes,
And so
yes.
that's what we talk about. That's a very practical. How do you fix it? You become
But it's so
you become aware that hey, regardless of what they did, I should not have
yeah,
gone like that. And
absolutely.
I've had the situation where not only did I have to apologize to the person that I went off on, but there was someone else present when I went off on that person, and I had to go apologize to that person too because they were a part of it. And their response was, "Well, I'm okay, but you probably need to go apologize to them." And so,
Right,
those
right.
are the kind of very practical things to do.
Mhm,
If you're cheating and you're stealing, you have to
mhm,
stop it and return
mhm.
what you at least the minimum of what you took, if not double, to make it
Yeah,
right. Those
yes.
are the kind of things when we talk about we know that there's dysfunction, we have to stop it because until it becomes and I work with people who are putting in new procedures and new processes and things like that. If we want them to change from the old to the new, we have to
Mhm.
painful for them to still do the old.
Yes, that's good.
And so
That's
until you
good.
make it painful to keep doing the old, you'll never break the cycle of doing the right, right?
Exactly,
And so
exactly,
I can't just go off
exactly.
because I know every time I go off, I'm going to be required to fix it. And that
Yeah,
doesn't really feel good because
that
now
doesn't feel good.
instead of being humble the first time, now I really go low and be humble and go
Exactly.
say, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done
Yeah,
that. I apologize. And accept
yeah.
whatever comes back at me because guess what?
Whatever comes
I
next.
receive it.
Yes.
They have to receive my apology. And when
Mhm.
they can also express how it made them feel, which might make me
Yes,
feel worse,
absolutely,
but
absolutely,
that pain will cause me to think twice before I go off on somebody else.
absolutely,
And so that's making it
absolutely.
very, very, very practical on how when we talk about we all have things that we're coming to work with. And again, with the 2020 pandemic, the Black
Mhm.
Lives Matter, the political climate, all of that, emotions are high. Em-
Hi. Now we're starting to see who people really are.
Exactly.
I mean,
Exactly.
the divorce rate is going up.
I read an
It's like,
article the other day about a mother. Her son has disowned her and said, "You're no longer my mother over this political stuff." Are you kidding me? She birthed you into this world, and you can walk away
exactly.
from her over a political decision that she makes. And so
Yeah.
emotions are high. There's a high range of hurt that people are dealing
Mhm.
with. We've got to work together to bring
Have to.
healing
Have to
back
go
to
back.
and hurt and help. And it's going to show up. It's
Yeah.
going. up in organizations, whether it's a church organization, it's corporate, whether it's your entrepreneur dealing with clients, it's going to show up if we're not aware of it and we're not intentional about fixing
Yeah.
it.
Yes. It has to show up so that
Right.
it
It
has to be. It
so it
has to
can be.
manifest. It has to show its
Right.
face. It can be dealt with properly. I honestly believe that. And speaking of the whole apology situation, I've always been like the advocate of the whole ownership, apology, and forgiveness transaction. And
Right.
it's interesting to me that I find that in our culture as African Americans, we don't like to necessarily have that hard conversation with people.
Right.
Whether in the workplace or in our families or friendships or whatever, we don't like to have that honest conversation, uncomfortable and congruent conversation of, please forgive me if I messed up for, not just I'm sorry, but I apologize for. Unfortunately, in our culture, apologies for things that have been done wrong and forgiveness, right, is you being invited to the next boat, or the next family gathering.
Right.
That's the apology. And
Right.
if you should receive that invitation, then you're forgiven for not showing up. We just come together at churches and in social gatherings and stuff, and just nothing ever happened without having the necessary conversation.
Right.
We have to have the Bible says to go see your brother, or you have all the things. So we can't get around that conversation. Try to come to my baby, come to this barbecue, whatever. We're so good at hiding behind
Right.
certain events that cover up the actual issues that are going on, the actual dealings that people have carried and suffer from. We don't talk about it. We want to move on. And we feel like life is short. So we just have to move on. But because life is short, we have to do it correctly. We have to take ownership. And
We're
we have to.
having a hard time with your audio. A little bit of
Oh,
hard time earlier.
oh.
That's better.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you were saying that
Hmm.
we don't deal with those scenarios, then we're going to show up at the next family
Absolutely.
or the
Yeah.
next church event.
Just as African Americans is more predominant in our, we don't have of ownership and forgiveness and laying things out so that there's clarity in the wrong. Not everything hash out and deep in the things need to be talked about. And a lot of times we rather go to the next gathering or show up to the next church event, and that's the place to smooth.
Okay, I don't know what's going on. Okay, we're having a little difficulty with your audio, and you did just freeze for a minute.
Okay.
You say okay, it's okay.
It's okay. I'm gonna fix it, Jesus.
That's right. That's right.
Did he fix it?
Yeah,
Because
it's me.
everything looks okay on my end.
I think. Yeah, I think it goes a little when you talk a little longer than just simple words.
Okay.
If it's
The
me,
enemy
I
doesn't.
would have to connect. So yeah, I think we're okay so far. Let's try to keep
Okay.
going. I think we're good.
Okay.
So before we wrap up, and we do have people watching, and so I want to thank everybody for watching and listening. Hopefully, you're gleaning something from this conversation around, let's take the mask off. Let's
Yes.
be real about what you're coming into any organization with, what you own, and what the organization owns. And if everybody takes ownership of their own stuff, then we're going to have a better outcome. We're going to be much more profitable. So we want to do a better job of that. But before we end the conversation, I wanted to just talk about what does look like, because we're all talking about I want to be me. I gotta be, we need
Mhm.
freedom to be space to be our free selves and things like that. Especially again because people are counting the clock on life and saying life is way too short, life is ending, life is too fragile, so I have to feel that freedom. And we know
Yeah.
that when we really feel free to express ourselves and free
Mhm.
to produce and free to perform, then we
Yeah.
produce phenomenal things, especially
Yeah.
like even what we're doing now, collaborating and things like that. We're free to share
Yes.
thoughts, and so the greater stuff is going to come out of this. The
Yes.
greater thoughts, greater potential, greater movements, right? Greater businesses are going to come out of this because other
Absolutely.
people are healed by what we're talking about. Other people are going to know that they're worth um,
Mhm.
more than what they have been acting like and
Mhm.
behaving. Leaders
Absolutely.
want to know that that they can help those people that they run from organization,
Yeah.
because we all
Yeah.
had those people that we say, oh my god, here they come again, because they were a good hire or they were a good person volunteer to bring on the team, but when they start
Mhm.
showing up you see all the stuff and all the craziness, which may not
Yeah.
reflect in who you are as a leader. It
Mhm.
may be that
Mhm.
person's stuff showing up, right? But how do I get them beyond that into
Yes.
a better place so that they can be really great people and
Mhm.
produce awesome stuff. So let's talk about.
Yeah. I would say first that you really have to know that, and like I said earlier, cycles of dysfunctions is a thing. So being educated on that and understanding that is a thing and that it's real, it's paramount. It is paramount. You have to understand that it is not a matter of if you are dealing with cycles of dysfunction, a family member. It's a matter of the statistics of dysfunction need to be broken because you are dealing with something, starting with you, starting with your ancestors, but African and because there is a cycle of dysfunction at that level in every. Okay, so everyone is dealing with and exposed and exposed, shared, unshared, we're dealing with them. So that, to me, that's the first thing is understanding that it is a thing, being educated on what it is. And then the second thing is basically evaluating yourself. Once you understand that it's a thing, then turn the mirror on yourself and evaluate yourself and ask, what is it that you've witnessed or learned from your family that you've reproduced yourself? Owning that you have in some way or another reproduced and inherited dysfunction. Even from the best of parents, even from the best of family backdrops, no one is exempt again without a dysfunction. So the turning that mirror back on yourself, Michael Jackson sung the song talk about the man in the mirror. So look at
Mhm.
that man and that woman in the mirror and begin to ask the hard questions, begin to ask God to reveal what those things are that I need to work on, that I need to dispel off of me, that I need to break off of myself. And how we can do that is that's not necessarily possible by ourselves. You know what I'm saying? My thing is that at very best, life coaches, mentors, pastors, and other clergy, some type of trusted, competent accountability partner or community helps us at that point of trying to break cycles of dysfunctions of our lives. And at best, therapists and counselors. A lot of people don't want to deal with that. It's like it's a thing in our community where it's just like, I'm not going to therapy. I'm not crazy, but
Mhm.
I always say, we have primary care physicians, we have dentists, women have OBGYNs, and so counselors and therapists are nothing but doctors for your mind.
That's right.
And when you are now committed to being invested in breaking cycles of dysfunctions off of your life, it is going to take an accountability partner of some sort. It's going to take that mentor, that coach, even down to that therapist. We have to dig a lot deeper, which for many of us, we got to dig a lot deeper because it's so deep in our bloodline, and it's such a part of our core and who we've been all this time that we need that clinical side, not just the biblical side, because the Bible, the word is sharp, right? It's swift,
Hmm.
sharper than any two-edged sword. So, but at the same time, with the word being sharp and swift, right? We still got to go see a doctor if we come down with something in our bodies. We can pray and fast all day, but we have to learn how to balance the supernatural with the natural, and be able to submit to mental professionals, mental health professionals, I should say, that are able to help us dig a little deeper, a lot deeper, and get to the core of what our issues really are, so we can be victorious.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. That's good.
yeah.
All right. Well, I do appreciate you coming on and sharing. Again, Aisha comes with her book. She has her book, Imagine Me, or
Imagine me.
Conquering Fears and Regrets and
Hmm.
things like that, and overcoming
Yeah.
them. And
Yes.
because, and I invited her because in the workplace, I see a lot of people showing up and they haven't figured out how to manage through the things that they're working through in their life or the things in their life that's impacting them. And so
Yes.
that's impacting how they get to go further. Now,
Absolutely.
the other thing is you can be healthy showing up in the workplace and things happen in the workplace that make you want to go back and lash out. And so
Yes.
why we were talking tonight about not only how individuals show up in the workplace, but also or in any organization, because we mentioned churches and so forth,
Yes. Yes.
but also how leaders can be ready to help people, even though I might be, managing my own things, how I can help those on my team, on my staff,
Exactly.
move beyond and outside of where they are. And
Hmm.
nothing's to say that admit that, hey, I can relate to where you are, and this is what I'm doing to get over it. Try this or try that. So,
Yes.
be each other, I guess, is a message so that everybody can be free to be their best, so that you can be profitable, so that you can reach the people if you're a part of a movement or a part of a ministry that you really need to reach, and your stuff doesn't get in the way of you
Yes.
completing that mission that you've been called to complete. Um, so it's been a pleasure having you on
Thank
tonight.
you.
And this
Been
has been a
awesome.
rich, 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 rich conversation.
Yes.
I apologize for the technical glitches that we had a little bit, but most of the conversation, we heard everything that you had to say.
Yeah.
Um,
Amen.
if people want to reach you, how can they do that?
So I can be reached at younglove.net. So that is youngluvE.net, LUV.net. And so there you will find the Conqueror's Journey. You will find access to my book, Imagine Me. The second book that's coming out next year will also be on that website. Life coaching is going to be launching next year in the new year. Life coaching and generational trauma healing and coaching is going to be launching also. And so I'm also on Facebook, Aisha Young, AISHAYOUNG, with a young lady in parentheses. I'm on Facebook, and you can follow me there also. I will be launching the Conqueror's Journey Facebook page soon. So we're going to be launching the Conqueror's Journey movement officially next year, uh,
Awesome.
2021. Yes. So pray for me on that one. Pray for me on that release date.
Absolutely.
Because I'm pushing for that
Absolutely.
release date. I'm praying that all will be done and finished so that we can do that unto the glory of God. So,
Yes, absolutely. And
yes.
again, I'm Yvette Owens. For those who don't know me and just happen to come upon this page, I'm Yvette Owens of Conquering Corporate Enemies, um, Mind, Personalities, and Situations, but also my podcast, which I'm starting to go with some live broadcasts like tonight with my awesome guest, Aisha Young, through company culture with Yvette C Owens, because culture is everything. And as leaders and visionaries, we have to intentionally not only design, but also manage and sustain the culture that we want so that people thrive in that organization and we really hit the mark that we're going after. So, thank you all for joining, those who have joined along this journey with us. If you have any questions, please post them. We can post. I will respond to them, and anything direct to Aisha, I will make sure she gets. Um, Join me tomorrow on Facebook. I hope to be posting this tomorrow or this weekend my next podcast for company culture with Yvette C Owens on my thoughts, your thoughts, great thoughts. And so join us for that audio podcast. And we will say good night to everyone. Remember, together we can create a culture that everyone is successful and great in. Have a good night.